Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Okay, in case some of you were here last week, I was also here last week because I forgot to get somebody for this week. So you have to put up with me again. Good morning. My name is Marcia Brooker, for those of you who may not know. I've been a member of this congregation since the mid 90s, and I have had many, many roles here. From doing welcomes to many, many other things. The one that I think probably I am best known for among the veterans of the congregation is that I started the Women's Retreat in 2000. It was a project that I had when I was in seminary at the time. So that was probably my greatest, I don't know, what's the word I want? Something to history? Anyway, I would like you please to turn off your cell phones or at least put them on vibrate. And I would like to welcome all of you this morning to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. And the people up watching us at home, welcome to you also. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury has been gathering together for 200 years. And as we work to build a more just world, we respectfully acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional land of the Paugussett people. I am so glad that you are able to join us this morning because you are an essential part of our celebration. Whether today is your first or your 1000th time in our midst, in person or online, we are stronger because you are with us this morning. If you're new to our community and joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourself and where you are connecting from. We're going to have you do that in just a couple of minutes. If you are online, you can do that through your chat box as you are comfortable. At the conclusion of today's service, you will have the chance to participate in a small group discussion or a breakout group, as we call them, for individual connections and a deeper check-in. If you are new and here in person, please fill out a visitor card at the table to the left of where you came in at the front door before you leave today, and someone will be in touch with you. And please consider staying for a few minutes, because if you take a sniff, you can smell that wonderful coffee that's brewing in the kitchen. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, many sexualities, and many genders. We are all growing, we are all learning, we are all loved. Just as you are welcome here. We have two announcements this morning. The first one is the Sunday connection for newcomers. Newcomers are invited to join. Oops, there's a nail here. Did you know that?
I do now.
I guess if I lean on it, it's going to make me go like that. You are invited to join Reverend Kathleen and Sarah Marie at the Fellowship Hall for an informal get acquainted session. Let us know what brought you here, what questions you may have about this congregation and Unitarian Universalism in general, and they will be very, very glad to meet with you. And this is a hot off the message. The auction committee is sponsoring a quick holiday sale, and it's only a month away, so that's quick for a holiday sale. It's going to be for the next 2 weeks. Please check your email on Tuesday when the sale begins. It is my understanding that this is for things that are small, maybe cookies or stolons or, a great apricot tart or something like that. So we thank you for paying attention to that. We are going to light the chalice now. Oops, I'm sorry. Wrong. We're going to greet one another, Kathleen. It's that kind of a morning. What can I tell you? Greetings.
Yes, greetings. Good morning, everyone. It is good to see you, and it's good to know that you are online and you are with us here, part of this beloved community on this November morning. Let's just take a moment to take a look around, see who is here, what faces do we recognize, and come in, come in. Make sure you look at the camera because there's lots of people online and we want to give them a wave. And take a moment to just say good morning to someone that is near you. And if it's someone you don't know, introduce yourself. I think there are some new faces here. I hope we will continue greeting, perhaps with a little more fervor after the service. But for now, let us rise in body or spirit as you are able and sing together our hymn of welcome. You'll find that in the gray hymnal. It's number 349, We Gather Together. Thank you. You may be seated. And now, Marcia, now you can come and light our chalice this morning. And Marcia will lead us in the chalice lighting affirmation. You'll find the words printed in your order of service or on the screen.
Okay, is everybody ready? Okay. I can't read it. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life.
Let's say together the words of our children's affirmation. It is so good to be together. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. So when a school doesn't have enough, thank you, Reverend Kathleen.
You're welcome.
When a school does not have enough resources or doesn't have enough players or wants a stronger team, they might create a co-op with another school to make a cooperative team, right? Can you think of some other examples when two groups come together to do what's better to do together than to do when they're apart? Marriage, absolutely. That was my original example when I was starting the story. Yes, when I was working on it. What else?
Consolidation of two religious traditions.
Aha, you got it, Randy, you got it. You headed right where I was heading. So that is indeed how the Unitarians and the Universalists in 1961 came to be the Unitarian Universalists. Now, that was when my parents were pretty little still. How about were any of you around or know somebody who was around during this? Aha, yes. So tell me, what was that like? What do you remember about that time?
We were newlyweds. We were in Westport, and we joined the new Westport Church, which was just being built.
Okay, so you at that time were joining this Westport church that was just being built, and do you remember conversations about the two traditions coming together?
Not really.
No, you don't remember that. Okay, that's a fair enough answer. That is a fair enough answer. Anybody else around or knows?
My parents attended the Universalist Convention in New York State where they voted toward consolidation. And then they attended the first General Assembly in Syracuse that began the process.
Okay, so they voted for consolidation. Your parents voted for consolidation and then were there when that process started at the first General Assembly. Awesome. This is living history, right? So when two groups come together like this, there has to be some compromise. There has to be some prioritization, some discussion, and some sense of togetherness that comes out of a little bit of struggle to figure out what is this new group going to look like. I want you to just turn to the back of the order of service really quickly and go about halfway down the page if you have a copy of it. And you might see the line that starts in italics, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote." And then there are these list of things which we call our principles, or I call this our Unitarian Universalist tree, right? And I help the kids remember each of the principles, which I call promises, by giving some words that belong to the first letter of each color of the rainbow. So we've got red, respect each person. And we have our latest edition. We have our 8th principle that we recently voted in as a congregation to build the beloved community. It's our Black promise to build the beloved community free from racism and oppression. And we also have roots, we have sources that this comes from. That all of this comes from the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association. It comes from our governing document. But it wasn't the first time that we decided, hey, here are some things that we agree on, that we're gonna live into together. In 1961, if you go back, you'll see a different set of documents. And the big conversation was about the words to love of God and love of man. That was the big conversation about which principles would be in the document. But these are part of our governing principles. And when these were written, the people who wrote them had the humility to understand that just like they were changing what was written in 1961, it may be that there's going to be a time when the words that we have said no longer are everything we want to say, or no longer say it exactly how we want to say it. And so they said, every 15 years, we need to take a look at this document. And that process is happening right now. It's actually been going on for a really long time. There's been surveys and interviews. 1,000 Unitarian Universalists have given input into what has become the first draft of a new Article 2, this piece, a new tree. Every tree has a lifespan. Every living thing has a lifespan, and this too is a living document and has a lifespan. So right now, all of us are invited to give input into this process, to continue giving input. There is a session this afternoon that the UUA is hosting for the Commission on, it's the Commission on the Article 2 Study Commission is hosting this this forum so that people can give feedback about the draft. You can read it online. You can go to the UUA website. You can read it online. They recommend you read it first for how you feel. Second, read it a second time for what you think. And then read it again a third time and think a little bit about what you might change. This is a draft document. And there's another session tomorrow as well. So all of us are invited into this process of becoming clear about who we are in a new era and time, and whether the tree that we have here has reached the end of its lifespan. And we might have lots of different feelings about that. We might think lots of different things about that. But may we carry the same humility of the people who came before us in creating change. Oh, and let's sing. And I'm going to there is a kid in the room who I'm going to take over to the cottage house where we're going to visit with any teenagers who are in the room there. And we will sing Go Now in Peace. Excuse me, that's not what we sing here. This little light of mine.
We move into this time of milestones of the congregation. So for those who may be new online or here, this is a sacred part of this hour that we spend together when we bring our full selves and we share what our heart calls us to share with this community, the milestones of our lives, those great joys that we would share that might lift others in joy. And those deep sorrows, those that we might need others to help us hold, help us just by carrying it for these few moments together. And we begin by offering time for silent milestones. There may be something on your heart that you wish to acknowledge, but not with spoken word. So I will invite you, as we listen to the soft music that plays, to be reflective. Reflect on your heart, on your life, on the milestones that you have experienced lately. And if you have a silent milestone, I invite you to come to the table, choose a stone, and drop it in the bowl. And at home, I hope you have something there that you can do to acknowledge your silent milestones. And then we'll move into a time of speaking and sharing aloud the milestones. But let's begin. Just taking a deep breath together and exhaling, and silent milestones.
Thank you, Reverend Catherine. I don't have to introduce myself because you've already done that. Good morning, everyone. It's my privilege this morning to share with you my views on Veterans Day. Actually, this is post-Veterans Day. This past Friday, November 11th, we celebrated Veterans Day. Veterans Day celebrates the service of all U.S. military veterans. While Memorial Day is observed on the last Monday in May, and specifically honors all those men and women who have given up their lives while serving the military. Today, we remember all military veterans, From those who are most highly recognized veterans to those who perform seemingly not such high profile assignments. In the Air Force, job assignments vary from the line cook in the chow hall to fighter pilots. On a large Air Force base with 3 major commands and 100 aircraft on the flight line, it takes approximately 15% of Air Force personnel to fly those airplanes. However, it takes another 85% of Air Force lesser known personnel to support the 15% of those brave men and women who fly those airplanes. In preparing this talk, after 61 years, I really surprised myself because I was able to remember 21 different AFC codes. And what that means, it's Air Force Service Code, and it really stands for job description. So on an Air Force base, there's at least 61 job descriptions, and there's another 5 or 6, and probably more than that. What this means is that it requires 21 different work assignments or more, with 21 different skill sets to support an Air Force base and its flying mission. The highly trained team must work seamlessly and in unison, and often when personal safety concerns are at a very high priority. Veterans Day is a good time to remember that freedom is not guaranteed. We know that so well these days with extremist politicians and extremist national media outlets performing outrageous lies, unsubstantiated conspiracy theories, menacing fears of autocracy, and a real threat to our way of living. In the 1800s, since 1800, there have been 1 million men and women, military veterans, who have given up their lives. Approximately 2 million have been injured during wartime at the behest of the President of the United States since 1800. Men and women have fought to the death to protect our values and freedom, fought for the national political decisions mandated by the government, or in support of weaker nations who needed help. It is my feeling that if all of those 3 million combat veterans who gave their lives and suffered so much had a voice today, they would be in a state of shock and disbelief. Those veterans would be outraged at the January 6th attack on the Capitol. In no way would they be able to reconcile or accept the tribal political environment we now experience. Combat veterans of past wars would be disgusted at the obvious fraudulent effect to support and create an authoritarian system of government, a system of government which carries with it the threat to our very democracy. Why did they die? Why did they die? They died in support of the Constitution of the United States, the rule of law, democracy, some semblance of civility, with freedom and justice for all. Again, thank you to all United States military veterans, men and women, and all branches of the military for your dedication, hard work, long hours, family separation, and time served.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to light the candle on the chancel table in honor of all of the veterans. And I want to do a special honor to Unitarian Universalist veterans, of which there are many, and the Unitarian Universalist military chaplains who are serving those who serve in our armed forces today. Let us never forget. Join me in a few moments of silence as we hold in honor our veterans, as we honor the life of Joanne Wells, as we grieve with those who have lost loved ones, as we celebrate with those who have joys in their life. Let us be together in this moment. Let us join our voices in the spirit of reflection with our hymn. It will be on the screen, but you may find it in the soft covered hymnal that is there. Filled with loving kindness. It's number 1031. We'll sing, "May I be filled, may you be filled, may we be filled with loving kindness."
Every congregation needs to get its coffers filled a little bit. So we invite you now to give as you are able. If you are new here today for the first time, your presence here is our gift, but we will now take the offering. For people who want to send it, there's an address up on the screen. I think you know the drill by now. Thank you.
I can guarantee you three things that always humble me. One truly is the service of our military. Secondly is technology. And third is beautiful music like duets from Barbara and Cheryl. Thank you very much. Country singer Mac Davis. Is anybody familiar? Do you remember? Okay. Only one person. And you were in Oklahoma. Okay, a couple more. Thank you. Thank you. Well, country singer Mac Davis had a top 10 country hit in 1980. And I was a junior in high school when that song came out. And I can remember riding in the car about a year later, probably, with my country-loving granny when that song, Mac Davis's song, came on the radio.
Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can.
Came on the radio, and my granny pointed her finger and looked right into that radio as if Mac Davis himself was inside there listening. And she sounded a little like Joanne Wells. Not as beautiful a Southern accent, but the same pitch. And I always think of that. Why, you old curly-headed fool. You need to be humble, 'cause you ain't that good looking. That was my granny. I didn't dare say to her, I thought he was kind of cute. And I knew that my granny was not known for being too humble herself. And of course, few people actually think that they're perfect in every way. And it can be hard sometimes to be humble, especially living in a society that prides itself on competition between people and the idolatry of individuality. And when you think you have all the answers. I chose this topic, the gift of humility, months ago, because I knew this was going to be the Sunday after the midterm elections. And you never know how elections are going to turn out, no matter what the pundits may say. It's hard to find humility in politics, isn't it? I mean, it's not exactly a strong suit of politicians, being humble. This midterm, wow, it was really something. I was reminded constantly of my 4-year-old grandson who just turned 4 and his favorite game, Candyland. Because his parents are trying to teach, and I'm trying as well, to teach him that sometimes you win, but sometimes somebody else wins, and that's okay. You can be happy that this other person won. He hasn't quite gotten that yet. But as I was watching ad after ad from both sides of the political spectrum, I kept thinking of my Luca. And the last time he played Candyland with Nana and Papa Phil. Yes, I won. You lose. I think I actually heard a couple of politicians saying those exact words. But just think for a moment of how we most often use that word, humility. I was humiliated. That was humiliating. Negative. We take that negative connotation, and in fact, we define it as a low view of one's importance, or the act of lowering oneself in relation to others, or perhaps in relation to a deity. It's interesting that the Association for Psychological Science came out and said research on humility has really struggled because the research, and this is true, the research has gotten so mired in disputes regarding how to define and measure the construct of humility. Because someone who claims to be very humble on a self-report measure might be displaying arrogance and a lack of awareness. They're essentially bragging about their humility. The writer Helen Nielsen once said, humility is like underwear. It's essential, but indecent if it shows. On the intrapersonal level, humility involves an accurate view of the self. That's a little scary. On the interpersonal level, humility involves a stance that is other-oriented rather than self-focused. And that actually makes sense to me. First, an accurate view of the self includes being aware of your talents and your limitations. You see yourself in terms that are neither grandiose nor self-defeating. You have an accurate view of yourself, including how much you rely on others. And then second, you look to other people in terms of what they can do, their talents and their limitations. I think it takes courage to be humble. I do. Especially in a corporate world where assertiveness and authoritativeness are so highly valued. And humility is seen mistakenly as a sign of weakness, lack of self-respect. But I want to posit to you today that humility is truth. My colleague here in Connecticut, Reverend Josh Pollock, said humility is a way of holding or conducting oneself that actually creates space for others. It allows others to breathe. It's a way of moving lightly through the world. It is an open and inviting and welcoming way of engaging others. It's a way of service. It's a virtue. We often know it when we see it, right? And in general, we really appreciate, in fact, we admire it in others. And there's something yet that is so oddly elusive, even almost paradoxical about humility. Now, the world's major and minor religions have a great deal to say about humility. Jesus taught in Matthew 5:5, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." The Quran tells us, "Successful indeed are the believers who are humble in their prayers." And Hinduism's Bhagavad Gita tells us to be humble, be harmless, have no pretension. An Ojibwe storyteller writes about what humility means in their native tradition. The old ones say humility is the foundation of everything. Nothing can exist without humility. It is the ability to see yourself as an essential part of something larger. Without the spirit of humility, there can be no unity, only discord. Humility is what lets us work together to achieve equality. It teaches us there are no greater beings, there are no lesser beings. There is only the whole. And in the Jewish tradition, humility is among the greatest of the virtues. Rabbis say the Torah is compared to water. For just as water only runs downhill and never uphill, the word of God can only be heard in a humble heart. I think my favorite story comes from the Buddhist tradition. And It's about the time that a scholar went to a Zen master to collect information about Zen. And the Zen master was gladly explaining what he knew, but the scholar began interrupting the Zen master frequently in order to add his own opinions about what was being said. And the Zen master saw this was not going to work. It wasn't going to work if he continued like this, because the scholar was more interested in expressing his opinion than in listening to the Zen master. And so he stopped talking and he started to serve tea to the scholar. And as the Zen master poured tea into the cup became full, but he just kept pouring. So the tea began to spill. And finally, when the scholar saw what was happening, he asked what the purpose was in doing that. And the Zen master said, like this cup, your heart is full of your own thoughts and opinions. But to taste my cup of tea, you have to empty the old cup first. Humility. There was a popular joke in religious circles back in the 1960s, and it's still occasionally told. I heard it from Rabbi Fine in San Diego when I was part of the interfaith clergy group. It's one of my favorites. So walking into the empty sanctuary, a religious leader was suddenly possessed by a wave of mystical rapture and threw themselves onto the ground before the altar, proclaiming, "Lord, I'm nothing." Well, the organist walked in, and seeing the leader in such a state, found themselves feeling profoundly moved by similar emotions, and they too threw themselves in front of the altar, proclaiming, "Lord, I'm nothing." Well, the custodian was in the back and no one had noticed, and the custodian too became enraptured with this feeling and threw themselves on the ground. "Lord, I'm nothing." Religious leader looks at the organist. "Look who thinks he's nothing." I'll give you a second. How to be humble. Accept your limitations. Appreciate others. Rediscover a sense of wonder. Because that jaded, I've seen it all. Maybe you've even said that. Or you know someone who's, I've seen it all. That makes us feel a lot more important than we really are, doesn't it? Because the truth is, nobody's seen it all. I don't care how old you are, how many degrees you have, where you went to school, where you traveled, what your experiences are. No one has seen it all. Nobody knows it all. I had an epiphany of late, and it happened just over a week ago. Some of you know I led the chapel service at the Kent School. Beautiful, beautiful campus. Has anyone ever been to the Kent School? Wow, breathtaking. So I was leading the service. I actually took our chalice. They'd never seen a chalice, at least that's what they said. Never seen. We lit this chalice from this congregation, right? There are 400 students and faculty in attendance. But I found myself making assumptions as I looked out. And I kind of forgot that sometimes teenagers just kind of have that. They just do it. It's just an instinct, they just. And I'm seeing, a little bit, and I start assuming, these are entitled teenagers. They must all be from wealthy families. They probably all think they know everything. And I'm assuming while I'm leading a chapel service. Where was my humility? Oh, I was humiliated. And I caught myself. And as I was teaching them a chant at the end that we were doing together, and they weren't doing it loudly enough for my taste. So I told them a story about when I was in Africa and the principal I met of the school, and they had to sit 3 to a desk. And wow, wasn't that really different from what they had to do at the Kent School? They needed to roll their eyes at me with that thinking going on. And they sang again. And I really looked out at them this time. And yeah, there were still a few, they weren't really wanting to sing too loudly. But then I saw there were some that were singing, it seemed, their loudest. I saw faculty with their eyes closed singing this chant. And I realized that my lack of humility had caused me to be out of right relationship with this group of people that I was there to lead. The epiphany was not to make assumptions. And I'm guilty of it. I made a lot of assumptions about that school, about those students. I don't know what those students are going through. I don't know what's going on in that student's personal life. I don't know the troubles that they are experiencing. I don't know what that faculty member has just received in a phone call, perhaps from a family member before they sat down in that chapel. Assumptions keep us from being in right relationship with others. A right relationship means we have respect and compassion for one another. And my compassion and respect were waning. I caught myself and I realized my lack of humility in that moment. We Unitarian Universalists, and I'll put myself number one, we're often pretty good at pointing out how wonderful we are. I mean, we are, right? How exceptional our way of being is. Like, how can anybody not love us? I mean, look how great we are. We're so open-minded. We point at other denominations that are stumbling over issues of sexuality and health. We feel a little smug. We got all that figured out. Because we forget. We forget about the long and bumpy history. That history that got us to the place where we are now, but the work we still have to do. The work we still have to do to truly embrace all of our kin in the breadth and depth and richness of their embodied selves. Even here, in this wonderful, beloved community, we can run the risk of making assumptions. We are at a point in our congregational life. I'm speaking a lot with Sierra Marie, our Director of Religious Education, because we're at a point where we have an active community of children that are not available on Sunday mornings. But they still believe this is their congregation. They are still involved, but we don't see them on Sunday morning. So we make assumptions. I made assumptions. Well, we really don't have any children. And when we make that assumption, then we make those children who do show up at times other than Sundays invisible. When we say, but we really don't have a religious education program anymore. When we assume that and we verbalize that, then we dismiss the very active program that we have. It's not a traditional Sunday school, but it provides rich opportunities for learning. We have children and youth who are thrilled to come together and to be together. Assumptions take us out of right relationship. And humility is needed in beloved community. In fact, Sierra Marie already did it once. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to ask you to pull out your order of service and look on the back. And if you are online and you didn't print out your order of service or happen to have a previous one, I'm going to ask you to listen. Because at the very top on the back, it says our mission statement. And I'm going to admit to you that the type is really small. But if you are willing, I would ask you to read it with me out loud. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury is an open religious community that welcomes a diversity of people, ideas, and beliefs. We celebrate together that which is good in life and offer comfort and care in times of need. With others, we work to create a just society and a sustainable earth. We stand as a beacon for independent thought and encourage lifelong spiritual and intellectual exploration. That mission has humility written all over it. We can't live that mission without being humble. As a UU congregation, we also affirm and promote the principles that Sierra Marie spoke about and that are listed here. But once again, we are going to be required to be humble as the Article 2 is discussed and continually debated, and the draft is there, and there will be changes. Humility is a core issue for our nation, for our individual relationships, and for our religious community. Even in our work for social justice, there is a place for humility. In fact, it is a profound and necessary act of humility to understand that when we are walking beside one another with the organizations that we work with, we don't always need to be the one leading. Instead of, here we are, here's what we're going to do for you, we say, here we are. What do you need from us? How can we walk with you? Because when we're humble, we bring the best of ourselves to the table. And at the same time, we empower others to do the same. There is value in humanity, in humility and humanity. There's value in knowing what we don't know and admitting it. There's value in listening with a humble heart. We don't need to fall in front of the altar to our knees. We just need to empty that old cup first. And we can begin sharing that gift of humility with awareness. Awareness of our assumptions, awareness of our limitations, as well as our achievements. Because the fact of the matter is, no one person, no one group, even UUs, have cornered the market on truth. And if we're willing to summon the courage to be humble, then we can engage from a place that realizes we don't have all the answers. In fact, that search for truth and meaning right there in the principles and purposes, that's a lifelong endeavor. Mac Davis was right. And children always humble us, by the way. So that's a good thing. Mac Davis was right. It's hard to be humble. But being humble allows you to be honest with yourself, and it's a manifestation of love. It's how we will build a stronger community through strengthened relationships, through deeper dialogue. Humility is the foundation of our relatedness. It is our most trustworthy commitment to walk through this world with less arrogance, less self-centeredness. Humility, when and where it's expressed in our lives, is seen and experienced as our profound reverence. Think of that. Humility as truth, humility as reverence for every person and for all living beings. The English writer and philosopher John Ruskin said, "The first test of a great human being is their humility. A curious feeling that the greatness is not of them, but through them. And they see something divine in every other human being and are endlessly, foolishly, incredibly merciful." Humility, truly a gift. May you give it. May you receive it. And may it be so. Marcia, would you come and extinguish the chalice for us as we share together the words? It should be right there on the screen.
We
Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Let us rise one last time in body or spirit as you are able, and let us join our voices in song with our hymn of celebration, number 331, "Life is the Greatest Gift of All." We are called to gather as a beloved community. We are called to desire more love and more justice, being mindful of our highest aspirations and bound by common purpose, filled with loving kindness, treasuring life as the greatest gift of all with courage, and sharing the gift of humility. Shalom. Salam. Amen. Blessed be to each and to all our veterans, our sweet beloved Joanne. Namaste.